So Jesus was nearing the end. He could probably look back on his 3-year ministry and maybe even take satisfaction in knowing that he had accomplished great life-changing movement in the history of mankind. Jesus had healed the sick, fed 5,000 people on one preaching occasion, and fed another 4,000 people on another preaching occasion. I think, Sharon, Jesus taught the church something that the church continues to take to heart. The crowds are always bigger when you serve food. On more than one occasion, Jesus stood up to the temple authorities. Jesus gave blind people sight. Jesus walked on water to rescue his fearful disciples. Jesus healed a paralytic who was lowered through a roof. Jesus brought several people back to life, including, as we discussed last week, his dear friend Lazarus. And Jesus used all of this to teach the world that God, the Alpha and the Omega, was entering into a new covenant of forgiveness and love with all of creation. This is a huge amount to accomplish in 3 years. And now Jesus was formally entering Jerusalem. The bulk of his miracles were behind him. Jerusalem was the center of spiritual life of the chosen people. It was the seat of power. It was the home of not just some country synagogue. It was the home of the temple. The temple that had been anointed by God. The temple whose restoration after the Babylonian captivity was directed by God. The same temple that had been under construction for over 600 years. With porches and covered porticos and waterfalls and places for people to gather and hear rabbis and other noted speakers, it was a showplace. And because this temple was the spiritual home of the nations of northern Israel and of southern Judah, the clever and observant overlords, the Romans, also made Jerusalem their territorial headquarters, their home away from home, their home away from Rome, if you will, so that they could keep an eye on the Israelites, especially the temple officials, whose revenue the Romans had so severely cut into. The Romans were very attentive to the goings-on of the Hebrews. They had set Pontius Pilate as Roman governor over the whole region. For all of the people who had heard of Jesus and his miracles performed all around the countryside, there were Jews and Gentiles in the metropolis of Jerusalem who had no personal experience of Jesus. Perhaps some who had no idea of who Jesus was. But word got around and very quickly. Have you heard about this Jesus? Well, who is he again? He is the prophet who had been moving all around the countryside of Galilee, curing the sick, bringing back the dead, introducing love and acceptance between the Jews and the Samaritans. Oh, he sounds like an imposter. No, I have seen what he does with my own eyes. The presence of God is with him. The presence of God is on him. He will be coming this way, right into Jerusalem. And get this, he will be riding on a donkey accompanied by a colt. Where is the prophecy of Zechariah? Maybe your Jesus really is the promised one. Maybe our redemption really is finally drawing near. Maybe this is our way out from under the thumb of the Roman soldiers. Maybe this is our way out from under the confusion and persecution of the temple. Maybe now someone will stamp out all of the bad people of the earth and finally do something for us. Maybe this is the conquering Messiah God promised. That's the kind of talk that was circulating around Jerusalem. So as Jesus entered Jerusalem, Hosanna! Blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord, they cried. Hosanna! Here we are, warrior king. Heal my children, Messiah. Bless my family, Messiah. Make my mother well again, Messiah. Bring our father back, Messiah. Messiah, give us food. Messiah, give us shelter. But Christ, don't change anything about the way we think or anything about the way we regard each other. Don't teach us anything about compassion or patience or kindness or seeing the world through a new loving and more inclusive lens. We didn't ask you for that, Jesus. Don't teach us anything about welcoming the stranger or tolerating other people's different beliefs. We don't want any of that, Jesus. We just want you to take care of us. Take us back to better times. Put us back on top. Restore the fortunes of God's chosen people. As someone in Bible study said this morning, make Israel great again. We don't care about anybody else. Hosanna in the ancient Greek means hail, conqueror. This is what a tired, sorrowing Jesus heard in their praise as he entered Jerusalem, fulfilling the prophecy of the God of creation. Yet his ears ringing with, what can you do for me? What can you do for us? How quickly can you deliver us from them? Hosanna, triumph for us, Lord. How conflicted, how torn, how sad Jesus must have felt. Everybody calling to him, but nobody having any idea what this journey was going to cost him. Not the temple, not the Romans, and not the disciples. Nobody really understanding that this Son of God, this very God who had once said, the second great commandment was like the first. Treat your neighbor as you would treat yourself. Treat your neighbor as you would treat yourself. Treat your neighbor as you would treat yourself. Was now hearing his greatest teaching shouted down by people screaming, Hosanna, conquering hero! What can you do for me? What can you do for me? As Jesus moved on in parade, in procession, conflicted, he must have been wondering, God, I want to do your will, but how can I do your will in this atmosphere? Is this what I signed up for? How does Jesus, traveling on a donkey, accompanied by a colt, react as he sees people in civil war, spraying their own country people with lethal chemicals? Has the world ever seen such cruelty before? A sorrowing and conflicted Jesus might answer, when hasn't the world seen such cruelty? Next month on May 9th, Burbank citizens will gather at Temple Immanuel to mourn the fact that during World War II, Germans began in civil war by killing Germans, and by the Holocaust's end, 6 million Jews around the world were dead. The United States Civil War is still the bloodiest war in which the United States has participated. Between 1620 and 1865, upwards of 10 million American slaves died. That doesn't include the millions of slaves who were extradited to the Western world, all up and down the Western coast, with the blessing of Christianity. Civil wars. On that very first Palm Sunday in Jerusalem, a conflicted and sorrowful Jesus might well have thought, I am riding down the streets of the holy city, and yet Israel, wanting to get rid of the Romans through civil war and killing of each other, is divided into northern Israel and southern Judah. To say nothing of Israel and Judah's cruel, segregated treatment of their fellow Jews, sister and brother Samaritans. Jesus, with tears in his eyes, might have wanted to shout back, you yell, Hosanna, Hosanna, conquer, wipe out, prevail. I wish I could gather you as a mother hen gathers her brood. But it is not the ones you fear, the ones you hate. It is you. You will not let me. Rodney King may not have been the most upstanding of citizens. Nobody is saying that. But there was something sadly prophetic in his most publicized of statements. Can't we all just get along? And perhaps as Jesus rode on that donkey, accompanied by a colt, as he looked away from the crowds and looked into the distance, perhaps he was elevated just enough on that donkey, on the back of that donkey, that he could see the place of the skull. the place where outlaws and terrorists of the state were executed. Perhaps he could just make out that hill. Perhaps he saw other bodies nailed on instruments of death. He would be forced to carry his own death instrument, his own cross, in just 5 days. As Jesus makes his triumphal entry, but the Roman officials, the temple officials, the crowd, and even the disciples not understanding his message of love and inclusion for all, 21 centuries later, it is you and I who must continually do the hard work of, as Edie said this morning, reinterpreting that battle cry, Hosanna, and make it into something glad, make it into something newly minted, something full of gladness. Now that we know from whence it comes, Hosanna must come to mean more and more that we see you, Jesus. We see you as you are, Jesus. Now more than ever, Hosanna must as never before mean, Jesus, just as you welcomed the other, the Samaritan, the Syrophoenician, the eunuch, all women, the Pharisee, the Roman soldier, the centurion, you teach us to understand that Hail and Hosanna sound sweetest to you as we, for the good of the earth, learn to understand and welcome the Sunni, the Buddhist, the atheist, the seeker, the homeless, the children, the world. Teach us to cheer you on by yelling back to you your own message of non-judgment and inclusivity for all. Let's pray. God, we, your people, are works in progress. All of this time later, we are still trying to get it. Life is dangerous. Life is fraught. Give us courage as never before to love as you love, to see as you see, to be compassionate as you are compassionate, to reach out as you reach out. Help us always be the church of the open door, the faith station of the open heart. In your darling Son's name we pray.